Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, yeah. Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello and good morning. Welcome to Hump Day, middle of the week, downhill slide to Firearms Friday. Oh, man, we are so ready to get together and get cracking on this. It's a beautiful, rainy, is that contradictory? Beautiful, rainy day? I don't know. It's that kind of that soft rain. It's that soft, moist, kind of dark and I don't know. It feels kind of nice. It's kind of that nice morning where all you smell is the fresh dirt and the rain. It was beautiful outside as I was standing out there getting wet with my dog, letting him do his business here this morning and just enjoying a little bit of that, I don't know, that summertime feeling. Here we are, June 5th, 5 days into the real summer here in Alaska and hoping that the next 95 days or 100 days or so of summer is enjoyable for you and yours as well. Today's program, we've got a little bit of changes from the normal. Normally, we're joined by State Senator Mike Shower in our programs on Wednesday. That's actually going to be tomorrow. Mike is going to be with us tomorrow instead of today. Today, in his place, we'll be joined by candidate John Hillyer, who is going to be running for the district down on the peninsula, and I forgot the number. It's Ben Carpenter's district, where he is currently serving as the representative. Ben, of course, running for state senate instead. And so John Hillyer has stepped up and is taking a crack at that seat right now. And he's going to come on board and talk with us about why he decided to do it, what his background is. That he's a former F-22 driver, so he and Dozer are in good company there. And he retired as a general in the Air Force. So he's got a little bit of command experience and working with people, and we'll see how that translates into working with other politicians in the clown show that is Juno. It's like a clown car, and you just want to stuff one more in there, hopefully one that makes a little sense. So we'll see what happens with that. But John Hillyer is with us in all of hour 2 this morning, and we'll be talking about that and giving you the full Monty as it is goes on there. Hour 1 of the program, we got a lot of headlines to cover today, and we're going to go through a little bit of everything. We've got the latest recap on the flag scandal. I know this is the thing that just won't die, but more stuff just keeps dribbling out as we get further along, and official statements contradict official statements, and So I want to touch on some of the interesting hypocrisy that's going on there. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk a little bit about the rise in crime in Anchorage, although maybe it's perception and not reality. I don't know. All I know is every time I open up the paper, and I don't have a physical paper, but every time I log onto a local paper's website and I read the new headlines of something that's going, I'm just confirmed more and more in my own bias of I'm never going anywhere without a gun. I am never going anywhere without a gun because, dang, that's the thing. Thank you, District 8, Dave. Thank you, District 8. I could never, I had it at one point. I knew all the district numbers, and then last year they switched them all around because of redistricting, and it takes me a while to remember where everybody's at and which district is which. So anyway, down on the peninsula. But lots of stuff happening in the Anchorage area. And many of you may go, well, I don't live in Anchorage. Why do I care? Well, because Anchorage, as I've said many times before, is simply the canary in the coal mine for the rest of the state. Because that's just kind of the direction that a lot of the rest of this, it's monkey see, monkey do. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, which, by the way, is not really a great... It's really not a great indicator for how the rest of the state's going based on this most recent election in Anchorage with the overwhelming election of Susan LaFrance as the borough, or as the Anchorage mayor. It's not a borough. Well, it is a borough. It's a first-class city. So they have an assembly, but it's a city assembly, not a borough assembly. Anyway, you get my point. She had already served on the progressive Politburo, the Politburo style assembly there. And now she's going to be running the joint. And I guess that this leaves me to basically come up to a couple different, they come up with a couple different scenarios as to how this happened. Either one, there's just not enough conservative voices in Anchorage to make a difference. Or two, there are, but they're apathetic. They just don't care enough. They're not paying attention enough. I will tell you that based on the amount of outflow and migration from Anchorage into the valley, which still continues at a prodigious rate, that apparently people are voting with their feet instead of actually in the voting booths. I mean, they could have slowed this down. They could have stood behind their candidate. They could have done the things that they did that got, Bronson elected in the first place to kind of hold as a bulwark against the more progressive moves of the assembly. But they didn't. Chris on Twitch right now just said it's hard being a conservative in Anchorage. And I could see that. I could see when you've got a whole assembly against you. And they're continually trying to spend more money, do more. It's not surprising that it's hard to be there. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done. It doesn't mean that people should throw their hands up in the air and just kind of acquiesce to this. But that seems to be what will happen. Will be what's essentially happening in California, right? We've seen this whole progressive ideology basically driving that state into the absolute ground. What was the last number I heard for the let's see, California state deficit? What's the state deficit in California for 2024? Projected deficit of $28 billion. $28 billion. They have and you wonder why people are fleeing the state of California and those progressive policies there. We're seeing this. I think you're going to see the same thing in Anchorage, where people are like, nope, not my circus, not my monkeys, not my problem. The thing is, it is your circus. It is your city. It requires, some kind of intervention. It requires effort. It requires work. And more people are more concerned about what's going on with the whole Donald Trump thing and the Biden thing. And not that presidential politics aren't important. Don't get me wrong, but go pull the lever and then quit paying attention to it, because you can't make a difference in any of those things. It's bread and circuses. It's, hey, look over here. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. The man behind the curtain is what's going on in your hometown, what's going on in your community, what's going on in your state. And yes, those may be the monkeys that are flinging poo at you at any given time to try and get your attention, but stop paying attention to that. I mean, you could still read the headline and go, oh, okay, and then stop worrying about it and go back to worrying about what's happening in our communities. I mean, I saw the same thing happening in Fairbanks before I left Fairbanks as the assembly continued to turn more and more progressive in Fairbanks while I was there. When I first got on the assembly in Fairbanks, it was a balanced assembly. And what I mean by that is there were about an equal number of more conservative people and then more liberal people. And then there was a couple moderates in the middle. It was a pretty balanced assembly. Would I have loved to have seen an assembly of nothing but conservative members? Sure, in an ideal world. But it never happened. And as I watched over the course of the next 5 years, it just got progressively more, it got more progressive over the next 5 years, to where when it was over and I left, there was two of us, just two conservatives on that board of 9 people. And what does that mean? Does that mean that Fairbanks became more progressive? I don't think so. I just think that people just stopped giving a crap. I think people just threw their hands up in the air and said, it's too hard. It's too hard to fight back. I'm just going to walk. I'm going to take my ball and bat and I'm going to go play over here. The problem is that they'll just continue to squeeze you out. If you stop paying attention and you stop, remember, government is what happens to you when you stop paying attention. And, I'm getting sick of this whole thing where, people complain about stuff because that's the nature. It's human nature to complain about certain things. But then, I always want to ask people when they're talking about, well, what did you do? Did you give money to candidates? Did you go out there and give of your time and your effort? Did you wave signs? Did you talk to your neighbors? Did you try and pick up the little old lady down the street and take her to vote? Did you do all these things? Now, probably on this program, yes, probably most of you did. Probably most of you did some of those things. The thing is, we're all talking in our little bubble here. It's just me, you, and 50 of the folks on the Facebook and YouTube and all the radio listeners, and you just nod and listen and everything else. But do you tell anybody else about what we're talking about on the show? Do you take these conversations that we start on the program here and do you take them into your workplace or to your soccer team or your softball league or your darts club or whatever? Do you to church? Do you talk to other people about the things that we talk about in the morning? Why not? Well, it's uncomfortable. Well, tough. Life is tough in the tundra, right? Life is tough in the tundra. Get over it. I mean, come on. I guess what I'm saying is I get sick of the bitching and the griping about things. And then when I find out from people, and again, not necessarily people on this program, because you guys are super voters, you paid to, but some of you nod and oh yeah, that sounds good. And then you forget about it for the rest of the day. And you're worried about what Drudge says about what's going on in DC. Who cares what's going on in DC? We can't affect that. What we can affect is what's going on here. Oh, I can feel a rant coming on. Not. Let's slow that down just a little bit. Let's slow that down a little bit. All right, we're coming up on the break. And we're going to continue. We'll talk a little bit about some of the candidates and the rise of what Suzanne Downing calls the false flag Republicans. Oh, we knew this was coming. We've talked about this a little bit, but I like that kind of false flag. I like that kind of caricature. All right, we're going to continue here. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense, Liberty Based, Free Thinking Radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
So, tell me that you don't really listen to what this show says without really saying you don't listen to what this show says. You ready? So tell me how you know. Here's your candidate, potential Senator Borbridge's comment, who says, oh, Corey, he's brave because he filed for office. Let's work at it instead of getting a radio show and whining about it all day. He obviously he doesn't really listen, right? He comes in here, he flings poo like the monkey that we talked about previously, back and forth, occasionally says something good, but usually it's just kind of insulting, stuff like this. If he'd listened to the program instead of just listening at the program, he would have heard me said many times that I have considered running for office over the years at a higher level, but always thought that I could do more good by trying to bring light to the subjects down here rather than trying to go down there and work with the folks in Juneau, because I have a hard time getting along with people who are stupid. I mean, I've said that multiple times. Who else has heard? I mean, I think probably Greg. I see Greg's there. Greg, Brian, a few of you. I know my dad's in here. I think I've said this to people face to face and on the program multiple times. But obviously, he's only here to get his point across and to campaign. He's winning friends and influences people. That's what he's doing right now. That's what he's doing. Jeffrey agrees with me when he says, when you don't vote, you get the government you ask for. Yeah, you get the government you ask for. Good morning. Good morning. If you don't like the whining, leave and don't let the door hit you on the bond, says Terry on the way in. Yeah, if you don't like the whining, then you're welcome to leave. I mean, nobody is holding a gun to your head to tell you to come here and listen to this pain. If this hurts you so much, show me on this doll where the Michael Duke Show hurt you. Brian, this is the classic, the Kardashianized America. Where again, that's do I still have that piece? I pulled down a bunch more clips for the Doomed segment that I was doing. I've got to get better at bringing that back where we did. But that thing where the gal couldn't even tell you, who fought in the Civil War, but she could name every Kardashian. She couldn't tell you when was the War of 1812. She couldn't tell you, what country Mount Rushmore was in. But these are just a few of the questions that get asked in these man on the street interviews. But she could name every Kardashian, rapid fire. The Kardashianized America. The Kardashianification of America. Oh, it's anything. It's just, it's madness. It's absolutely madness. No, people with different viewpoints are not stupid. People who are stupid are stupid. There's a difference there. I mean, I just want to point that out. I'm not saying that I disagree, that just because I disagree with somebody doesn't mean that I think they're stupid. I think their actions spell the stupidity for them. So, it's one of those things. Harold is just one wild and crazy guy. Sometimes I think he's just playing devil's advocate. I think sometimes he's just here to stir the pot and throw the grenade and walk away. That's how he is. Which, who knows? That may be good down in Juneau. Maybe he walks down there, throws the verbal grenade, ducks and covers, and comes back out and cleans up the mess. Maybe that's it. I mean, who knows? What are you going to do? All right, let me scroll back upwards here to see what is going on. Chris continues to say, local community councils are bad too. Endless parade of people asking for more big government. Absolutely. I mean, it's a self-licking ice cream cone in these kind of more purple or progressive areas because they continue to look. The only answer to every question is government. That's why they're always looking for more. It's always government. Okay. 5 seconds. Let's get to it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay, welcome back to the program for this rainy Wednesday. What does it say? Rainy days and Mondays always get me down? Rainy days don't get me down. I like a little rain. Smells good. Man, makes everything green and grow faster. I mean, I wouldn't want to live under it, 365 days a year, but Mondays get me down, but rainy days don't get me down. I'm just, maybe that's from part of my time when I lived on Kodiak, because there was a lot of rain on Kodiak, All right, well, let's talk a little bit here because we were just talking about elections and it mattering and getting people involved, and how I'm kind of sick of the whole, people throwing their hand, the excuse of, well, it just doesn't matter. Oh, it just doesn't matter what I do. The whole thing is rigged. I mean, look, this is the whole thing about the election stuff, right? Because I've never bought into the full, the stop the steal. I never bought into any of that. I think that there are definitely problems in some areas with a confidence level in the voting system, because there's a perception, right? And the perception is if the whole thing is rigged, then why bother? I start to think that at some point that narrative may be pushed by people who don't have the best intentions for America and for people as a whole. And if they continue to push that narrative, that maybe they just drive more people to throw their hands up and say, well, it doesn't matter because the whole thing's rigged anyway. Why should I participate? See, that should never be the reaction. If you perceive that there's a problem, whether there is a problem or not, because in this case, remember, perception of reality. This is, again, the whole fundamental idea of America, and the whole system is predicated on the faith of the people who are participating. Whether you're talking about the financial system, whether you're talking about faith in the justice system, whether you're talking about faith in the electoral system, it's all predicated on the full faith of the American people. You want a bank run, you want to crash the economy, just tell people that banks aren't giving your money out and everybody's going to run to the bank. And the whole thing is based on confidence. Same thing with the electoral system. If you continue to tell people that the electoral system is totally hacked and it's rigged and you're never going to get your fair shake and your candidate's never going to win because somebody's going to steal it from them and everything else, people go, well, why bother then? Stop. Just stop. Stop. Do not give up. Do not grow weary in well-doing, no matter what they throw at you. And boy, are they getting sneaky. I mean, we were talking the other day about, how now you have the rise of the independent, undeclared, non-affiliated candidates in the legislature, right? I mean, we're talking about people like, Bryce Edgmond, who is a well-known progressive, has been a Democrat for years, and then arbitrarily one year he wanted to change and create the coalition and make it more palatable. So what did he do? He changed to an independent. I'm not a Democrat, I'm an independent now. Well, we see that going on all over the place. I mean, the list of candidates who are now independents. But see, they've even taken it a step further. Suzanne Downing over at Must Read Alaska has got an article up that kind of points out that, they've taken it one step beyond just being an independent or an undeclared. And she's talking about the race for House District 34 up in the interior. That's the seat currently being held by Frank Tomaszewski. You may or may not be aware that Joy Beth Cottle, who is his opponent in that race, which is now a Republican on Republican race, you may not realize that she was registered as undeclared as of the third, and then all of a sudden, as of the third week of May, all of a sudden she was a registered Republican. Now, her actions up until that point have been pretty much Democratic. She's followed the tenets and the policies and pushed the agendas of the Democratic Party. She submitted testimony to the legislature, begging lawmakers to restore the defined benefits program. She's a Tier 3 employee. She wants all that. She's a union activist, and she worked as a Fairbanks firefighter. So thank you to her for her service, but that's also what she's been pushing for. She signed a petition for higher minimum wages back in 2014, but has not voted in a single primary election since 2015. So, I mean, it looks like she's a single issue candidate. She's all about getting defined benefits back for the state, which sounds like she wants, she's a little self-interest there. She, on her Facebook page, she wrote the quote, "The Daily News Miner ran a story incorrectly identifying me as running as a Democrat. I filed as a Republican and I'm requesting a correction to the article. I'll assume best intent unless proven otherwise." Oh, because the Fairbanks Daily News Miner is such a conservative outlet that, of course, they, that's just like a little dig and a subtle threat that, I'll assume best intent. But when you look at her record, it's not hard to see. She again took it from it's going next level. Was a Democrat, knew you couldn't get elected as a Democrat, so you decide you're undeclared or you're independent, and then you just, the next logical step is just to register as a Republican. And then file for office and then listen to what's being said. Now, we've seen this happen in the local races in Fairbanks in the past where, you really have to listen to what people say. We saw it happen down in the Matsu with that school board race here this last fall, where you had to look at the people who were running, and the one gal, and I've forgotten her name right at the second, but she was telling people, "Oh, I'm a conservative. And she is one of the reps for the NEA, which, I mean, maybe potentially somewhere there's somebody who's in the NEA that's conservative, but not somebody who is one of the main reps, the head cheeses, the honchos. Those are all pretty much big government progressives in those positions. But she was wandering around telling people how conservative she was. It is a lie. Just like Joy Beth Cottle it is a lie to say, I'm a Republican. You could slap any label. I guess it just comes from the idea that somehow you can just be any gender you want. I could be anything I want. I can be a furry toaster lover. Doesn't matter. I can identify as a furry toaster. I guess I can identify as a Republican now. How do you identify? I'm a they, them Republican. Okay. How does that work? So it just doesn't matter. Right? Because words don't matter in certain conjunctions, because you can't tell me what I identify as, but then I have to use the words that you decide. I mean, this whole thing is just insane, but it is a false flag Republican. You need to look at you need to look at all these races and remember 17 of the 50 races have more than one Republican in the race. So don't just look at the letter next to the name. Don't look for the elephant on the lapel. Look at their voting record. Look at what they're saying. Educate yourself and tell everybody else about what's going on. Because this is what's going to happen. How many more have slipped in there? How many more have gone from Democrat to undeclared to Republican, and it's not a true conversion? We've seen that happen in the past where people's, their philosophies have changed over a period of time to where they become more conservative. And in some cases, they become more progressive. But in this case, it's a false flag. Absolutely. Look at what they say and look at what they do. I'm a Republican. I'm a Republican. I'm a Republican. You're pushing for a defined benefits program? That is, the potential for that is to bankrupt the state. Speaking of California, have you seen the unfunded liability to the CalPERS? That's the California, personal retirement system. Have you looked at that? It's billions and billions and billions of dollars of unfunded liability because they had this gold-plated thing. That's why we stopped it. And now you want to return to that? It makes no sense. We've got Senate District L where Kelly Merrick is. Now, she says she's a conservative, but I said it during her run for election. Look at her track record. Look at who she associates with. Look at who she's, the thing. She's married to the union boss. She got all these. Look at, don't be taken in by the good talk and the rhetoric and the fact that she's got an elephant on her lapel, and look at what happened. So how many of these others independents will make that change? Or how many of these unknown Republicans, names that many people probably don't know, what does that mean, in the race? This District 6, which is, Homer, those areas, that's where Sarah Vance's district is. I don't know Dawson Slaughter from Adam. Has he been a Republican? Has he always been a Republican? What's the problem? Is it because of the vote? It seems like everybody's voting against or hating on Sarah because she didn't vote to increase the school funding when we already spent $18,000 per kid on it. So who are these people? Again, I guess the whole point of this mini rant is basically go look at the candidates that are in office go look at the candidates that are running for office. And don't just look at what they say, the animal they wear on their lapel, and the sound bites. Go dig into what the issues are. What are they putting on their campaign pages? Laddie Shaw's district. I'll be honest with you. I'll be super sad if we get Laddie Shaw is replaced with somebody who is a faux Republican. Lee Bauer is a known name. Lucy Bauer. She is given, she's given to causes. She's been part of the party. She's been working hard. Great. Now, again, I'm not a huge fan of the party, but you can at least see her work on this. Lee Ellis and Brandy Pennington, both of them, they're just recent converts. They both just registered as Republican within just a couple weeks, 3 weeks of the whole thing, of the filing deadline. They may be gold-plated candidates. They may be fantastic, but maybe not? Question mark. If you live in those areas, you should be asking, that's Girdwood, by the way, the Girdwood area, down there. You should be asking those questions. Stop disengaging, because that's the thing. I was just, stop disengaging on that. Okay, I totally blew my schedule here this morning because I still wanted to talk about the flag and I wanted to talk about the shootings in Anchorage, but we're going to have to choose here in the next segment. Maybe we'll let the chat room choose. Do we talk about the flag or do we talk about the shootings in Anchorage, I guess? We'll see what the chat room says here during the commercial break. We'll be back. The Michael Duke Show continues. Coming up at the top of the hour, John Hillyer will be joining us. Candidate for District 8 down on the peninsula, General John Hillyer. We'll return with more right after this.
Is that?
Common sense. Regularly heard on American radio.
Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Okay. Audrey says, Audrey's just greedy. Audrey just says both stories. But if you have to pick, she wants to talk about the flags. Amy wants to talk about the flags. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's see. The flags. Everybody's talking about the flags. Let's see. I'm going through here what's going on. There is so much info coming out on the jib. Really showed how the sheep followed the truthful MSM. I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming out now that there's article in the Wall Street it was the Washington Post talking about how the 6 feet rule was arbitrary and made up, and they just decided in a round, they all shouted at each other in a room until they decided that 6 feet was the number. There's no science behind it. It was just an arbitrary consensus. I mean, it's just, wow, it's crazy. Let's see. Good morning. I love the rain, makes everything clean. Yeah, I like that. Let's see. Audrey says, honestly, Michael, since I started listening to your show 2 to 3 years ago, our family has become much more involved and tuned in. Thank you for what you do on the show and opening our eyes. Well, thank you, Audrey. I appreciate that. I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm screaming into the void here, right? Because there's a lot of people who agree with me, and then there's Harold. I mean, that's just like, as inevitable as the tide. But I don't always want people. I mean, I want to bring new people in to talk about, because that's how we move the needle. Preaching to the choir and getting the echo chamber kudos back. That's not an echo. What Audrey just said is not, but is great. But what we want to do is I want to have more people like Audrey who discover the show and find out about these issues that they haven't been paying attention to, stop paying attention to all the national BS, and then come back to this and go, oh, well, maybe I should be paying attention in my hometown. Maybe I should be, Yeah. You're not waxed this morning, Michael, says Jeannie. Well, how do you know? Have you talked to my esthetician? Actually, I am waxed this morning. It's a mild wax. There are different levels of waxing. You'll notice that it's not moving. Jeannie, I'm going to do a YouTube tutorial on waxing your mustache. Different styles. Tight curls, loose curls, the feathery. I mean, whatever you want. Oh, man. If I didn't make the mustache such a part of the branding, sometimes I feel like I'd shave my beard off. But then I'd look like a 12-year-old boy. Nobody would recognize me. It's funny because people will make some kind of guesstimate or assumption on my age. And then I'll be like, I'm only 53 or 54. And they'll be like, what? Don't let the white hair fool you. It's not the age, it's the mileage, right? If I shave this thing off, I look like a 12-year-old boy. That's how it works. Okay. Let's see, school boards. Yeah, and I would scare the crap out of I still remember the last time I shaved my beard off. Would have been 18 years ago, 17 years ago. And my son had never seen me without a beard. He was 2 or 3 at the time. And I shaved the beard off and he burst into tears. He didn't know who I was. It was funny because they were like, who the heck is that? Bad guys in my house. When am I shaving for the sake of the homeless? I'm not. How would me shaving save the homeless? How would me shaving do nothing but be virtue signaling for anything? Explain that to me. in small words, because I'm just a high school graduate, not a vaunted oil and gas economy graduate student. Explain it to me in small words. And someone will say, oh, look, you've put on weight. Thanks, Mom. It's true, too, probably, because I got, I'd have the roundy cheeks. I mean, the beard is pointed to try and, ignore the fact that my face is a little rounder than it should be, right? Ignore that fact. This is all camouflage. This is all camouflage. Camouflage, as the French say. All right, let's continue ahead here. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based. I'm going to try and do both the flags and the shootings. We'll try and do both of those, okay? We'll try and squeeze them in. Let's get to it. Jump back in right stinking now.
The Michael Duke Show, proudly splitting the left versus right dichotomy. Yeah, I had to look that word up too. I don't think it means what he thinks it means. Here he is, though. That guy, Michael Dukes, the one with the show.
Yeah, that guy. The one with the show. Oh, man. All right, welcome back to the program. One final segment here. And before we get talking to General John Hillyer, who's going to be coming on board in hour 2 to talk about his candidacy for the State House down on the peninsula. And I asked the chat room, and they said they wanted to talk about the flag thing. So we'll talk about that, but I'm going to try and get both in because I agree with Audrey. She's greedy. She wanted us to talk about both. So I'm going to try and get to this. Here's the response. The flag, for those of you who are living under a rock and didn't hear, the Denali National Park, they asked one of the contractors there who was flying an American flag on their truck. The employee who was asked to remove it told somebody else, and it went viral, got national news. Libs of TikTok was on it. Senator Dan Sullivan issued an ugly letter to the head of the National Park Service. Ben Carpenter got involved. Mike Shower, Jamie Allard, Kevin McCabe. They were all sending letters and emails saying how outrageous it was that you didn't want to fly a flag in a park. Anyway, it stirred up a bunch of controversy, right? And then we got this mealy-mouthed kind of response from the Park Service where they couch it in terms, obviously written by a lawyer or a chat GPT or both. I mean, quite honestly, could have been both. But it was just couched in this, if-then kind of, it was a mealy-mouthed reply in the long run. So the Park Service on Sunday issued a statement disputing that a service employee had requested the removal of the flag. That was early last Sunday. But on Friday, Park Service spokesperson Peter Christian said that a park employee had notified the Federal Highway Administration about a visitor's complaint regarding a flag earlier in the month. This is from Ira Samuels over at the ADN, by the way. Christian's statement said, after further review, it has been confirmed that a Denali National Park employee notified the FHW, the Federal Highway Association staff, about a visitor's complaint of a flag flapping on Denali Park Road and asked if it was appropriate, there was an appropriate way to request it be detached from a contractor's vehicle to limit wildlife and visitor impacts. The flapping of the employee contacted the FHWA. Here's the CYA. Cover your posterior. The employee contacted the FHWA without authorization and without the superintendent's knowledge. Oh, Brooke Merrill, she's running for. It wasn't me. I didn't do. I mean, she could have come out and said that from the very beginning, but without the superintendent's knowledge. Park officials have taken corrective actions to ensure future park and project communications follow proper procedures. Then, of course, Christian changes tact, right? They give you the mea culpa. It's a mild mea culpa. in there while throwing the employee back under the bus because he didn't have authorization to speak to anybody, wasn't the superintendent. Then he goes back to the mea culpa and says earlier in the week that hateful words and threats being leveled at NPS employees working hard every day at Denali National Park are irresponsible and disappointing. Now, do I disbelieve the fact that probably people had hateful words and maybe threats? No, probably, because people in this world are freaking crazy, right? I mean, have you seen the internet? Have you looked the internet thing? Have you looked at it? There are some people who will say the craziest stuff ever, thinking that I'm on the internet, I'm anonymous, I could say whatever you want. Say things like, I'll come and burn your house down. And then they get surprised when the police show up, right? People are stupid in mass. Individually, they're great, but in mass, they get riled up about something. They're just like, ah. So, but again, not surprising that with anything controversial, that there's not hateful words but again, it's a deflection. Feel bad for us because we're getting a lot of hate. Well, let's see, you put out a bland statement, you basically lied, now you're correcting the lie, and then you're blaming the people who are giving you hateful comments this is just par for the course, right? But this is what kills me. Neither the Federal Highway Administration nor the National Park Service provided details on the identity of the staff member who relayed the complaint about the flag, nor the park visitor who initially made the complaint. The contractor, Granite Construction, confirmed that the Highway Administration notified the company on May 16th that a visitor complained, quote unquote, about a Granite Construction vehicle that was, quote, creating a noise disturbance by traveling through the park with a mounted flag, unquote. The snapping of is it the snapping? Because they mentioned that the visitor complained of the flag flapping on Denali Park Road. You can hear the flag flap over the vehicle? I mean, is it was the creating the disturbance of traveling through the park with a mounted flag. So you couldn't even see it? It was just the flapping of the waving of the flag? It's just crazy. Of course, Sullivan got involved, as I mentioned earlier. And when his spokesperson, Ben Dietrich, was reached out to by the ADN, and asked, what was going on with this. And of course, they had to ask Ben about the violent language and the hateful words. And he said if Sullivan was concerned about what the NPS described as hateful words and threats, he said Senator Sullivan condemns any and all personal attacks on public officials, including it's like a gotcha question. What are you going to say? What's he going to say? Oh, I support them saying hateful words and threatening people. I mean, such a nothing burger. Anyway, here's Dietrich's comment after the whole thing in this latest round of comments. Had the Park Service dismissed this complaint as not legitimate, that would have been the end of the story. But they didn't. They passed the complaint against this Alaskan onto somebody else, not clear exactly who or for what reason. The end result was after a complaint was filed with the Park Service, a hardworking Alaskan was told by somebody that he had to remove the flag from his truck. That pretty much boils it down and concises it down. If they had just, again, dismissed the complaint as, what are you going to, the flag flapping bothers me. What about the truck itself driving down the road? What about the jackhammers and the heavy equipment operating on the bridge? What about the sound of the river running by, or the eagle's cry, or name a million things. How does this, okay, Karen, how does this fix anything? I mean, was it really? They can't say it was it really a person? Or is this some kind of, your mind starts going into questions like, was it really a person? Or is this some kind of philosophy thing that, you're trying to get your agenda through and that was just a convenient excuse and you didn't think anybody would, notice, or what? I just don't know. Anyway, that's the latest on the flag thing, and hopefully it dies now. We don't hear anything more about it, but we'll keep our eye out. We'll see. All right. In Anchorage, Mayor Bronson said that the Anchorage police officer shooting someone for the third time in 3 weeks does not show an increasing trend towards violence. And while I may agree that maybe these things happen in spurts sometimes, it's not just the 3 police shootings in 3 weeks. It is the shootings going on every day. Another officer-involved shooting, the last one was on Monday night. That was the reports of shot fired in a parking lot over in the at a senior center. There was another one that took place where one man was killed outside of a bar in downtown Anchorage on Saturday morning. He was shot by another patron, and then the officers shot the shooter. He survived. There's another man critically wounded at a shooting at an East Anchorage gas station. He wasn't shot by police. He shot the other guy, and you want to know why I carry a gun all the time? It's because of stuff like this. I travel through that area of town occasionally over at Northern Lights in Boniface. That's just down there by the Costco that I go to. It just happens with no rhyme nor reason. In some cases, it just happens. So while I agree with the mayor that maybe saying that the 3 police shootings in 3 weeks is not an indication of an increase, it does make you go, things that make you go, because it's not just the police on public violence, it's the public on public violence. There's been several shootings in the Mountain View area over the last month, including some with just shots fired and others where people have been injured. It's a little concerning. And what really bothers me, quite honestly, is the shooting that took place where Christopher Handy was shot. He was having a mental health episode. The police had been called by the girlfriend. He was out, and they said that he came out and raised a weapon in their direction. But there have been dozens of different angles of this, apparently from ring cameras and everything else, where it disputes the police's version of the story, that in fact he didn't raise the gun. And it just furthers the distrust of the police that they don't need that. I'm concerned about that. I'm just glad I don't live in Anchorage. If you do, I'm so sorry. But we got to watch what's going on there. All right, we're coming up. Hour 2 dead ahead. General John Hillyer will be joining us. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based. Free thinking radio. Up next. Jacob gets a runner-up prize on the internet today behind the Kardashianization of America comment from Brian. He says, should we cut down the trees because the wind through them causes the rustling noise? Yeah, that's exactly. The flag flapping is what got you? My God. Nature can be loud. Apparently, that flapping is just so distracting. I need to go talk to your manager. Can I talk to your manager, please? Can we talk about the flag? It's making too much noise. Maybe we should go get the flag off the moon with the sprit on the top of it where it just holds it flat. Maybe that'll help. I don't know. I see General Hillyer here is in the green room. We're going to get to him here in just a hot second. I just want to go. I just want to scroll backwards real quick to see if there's anything here that I missed that was super important. I had to shave about once a week for a respirator fit test to maintain my hazardous qualification. I'd go into seclusion for a week or so. Yeah, no, yeah. If I shave this off, I don't even know if I wouldn't even recognize myself. The lip flapper. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Perfect government speak, says Brian. Yeah, I know. It's like, here's our problem and here's how we screwed up. People are being mean to us and threatening us. I mean, it's crazy. Say the damn, but the Park Service has no problem. But the Park Service has no problem flying the pride flag this month. I'm sure it's probably down there. I'm sure it is. And then they lost the flag at the flagpole. Usually they take it down every morning, and then they couldn't find it the day of Memorial Day. Bah, come on, people, really? All right, let me stop my yammering here. Let's go over and check in with John Hillyer and see how he's doing this morning, and we'll get the full rundown here. Good morning, sir. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Michael. I'm doing well.
Good. Oh, look at you. You sound loud and proud. I like that. That's fantastic. You ready to take the deep dive into this and get things all squared away?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to just bring your volume down just a little bit because you've got that command voice, projection voice. So we'll be good to go. All right. So no, you look good. You feel good. I think we've got got your name. Do you have a website yet, John, or anything that you're ready to?
I've sent you the contact information, the candidate information this morning on an email. But
okay.
It's www.johnhillyer4alaska.com. The 4 is FOR. So johnhillyer4alaska.com.
Alaska.com. Oh, and look at that right there under your name.
Yeah, it's the 4 is FOR.
Oh, FOR. Okay.
Yeah,
sorry
about that.
No, that's okay. That's how we learn. It's how we learn. I'm just correcting so it's easier to read, and boom. All right.
Excellent.
All right.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Thank
you
very much.
I appreciate you coming on, and thanks for throwing your hat into the ring. I know that this is not always the most convenient thing to try and do.
I know I'm finding that out pretty quickly, but I feel it's got to be done.
Yep. All right. Let's I'm going to go ahead and put you back in the green room for now. We're 2.5 minutes from rejoining the radio, and then we'll kick off with the theme music, and then we'll jump right into it with you for the full hour. Okay.
Okay. Sounds great. There's probably a slight delay, and being a novice at this, hopefully I'll, accommodate that slight delay. And then,
I think sounds like we're going gangbusters. I'm not perceiving any delay on my end, so it's all good.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to pull you back into the green room, and you drink my virtual coffee and eat my virtual donuts. Leave me one with sprinkles, though. That's important. I need the one with sprinkles. I got to have the beard hide my chubby face for a reason. I want the sprinkle virtual. There's no calories in them, though, because they're virtual donuts. That's what it's all about. All right. Sourdough Steel over on Twitch says, I don't get the outrage. Maybe I'm just a bad libertarian. I understand that there are some libertarians who are not patriotic, and I understand that position that they see it as more kowtowing to the state than anything else. I'm a patriotic libertarian. But I guess really what I'm upset about is the hypocrisy of, like you said, they'll fly the pride flag, no problem. But they don't want to fly the American flag on a federal installation paid for by your tax dollars, protected by, all this kind of. They want to to me, it's the hypocrisy and the inequality of that. Fly the pride flag, great. How about we fly the Gadsden flag? How about we fly the Appeal to Heaven flag? How about we fly the American flag? How about we fly? I mean, if there's equity, there's equity, right? But see, there's the correct kinds of equity, it seems like, in certain ways. That's what the outrage for me is. Even if I didn't believe in the idea of America and the fact that it's Memorial Day and we're memorializing people who gave their life for the country, whether you were patriotic or not, you could still have some respect for people who gave their all for the country, right? Now, again, I'm already patriotic in that way, so I understand it. But I understand that there are people out there who are libertarians who see patriotism as a problem because it glorifies the state as a government. I understand that. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's understandable. I don't think you're a bad libertarian. I think you just have a different viewpoint. Jeffrey said, I shaved my beard off once. My granddaughter said, no, Grandpa, just no. Yeah, no, I mean, it's hard. I mean, I'd never probably make it in the military because I would have to shave it off. Unless, of course, I went special forces, and then they allow them to wear that, right? They look hard and they grunt. They eat dirt. All right. Sorry, I just got sidebarred by a comment. Leela says, Michael, the cool thing about being a libertarian is that it's a large tent, but I still can't join the LP because Chase Oliver isn't anywhere close to my value. I mean, I won't be voting for Chase Oliver. I mean, the libertarian tent, there's all kinds of libertarians. That's why I've never become a member of the Libertarian Party. I'm a small L libertarian, not a big L. Oh, wait, does that look like a loser? No, I just, I'm the small L libertarian because if I got to vote for the guy with a boot on his head, or the guy who takes a THC gummy before he gets up to speak about becoming the leader of the free world, that's a problem. That's a problem right there. All right. Sourdough says, I hate the government so much. I just hate the government so much. It's been screwing me for years. I mean, hey, welcome to wait, I'm sorry. Wait, that was the right.
Welcome to the party, pal.
That's right. That's it right there. They've been screwing people for years all over this country. So while I feel your pain, you are not alone. Just saying that. You are not alone. You can have a beard if you worship Odin in the army. Well, I guess if I was in the army, I'd feel a conversion coming on. I don't know. I know that's blasphemy. I didn't mean it that way, but it's funny. All right. We're going to continue here. I think that's all. I think that's all the great stuff here. By what criteria? The Brady Gun Violence Center considers us dangerous simply because we own a lot of guns, and they consider some other states to be much safer because they restrict guns. But you're safer walking around an Alaskan town at night than you are walking in a similarly sized town in Massachusetts, New York, or Cali, and much more likely statistically to die in a mass shooting. Well, yeah, I mean, again, there are shades of danger. One of the reasons why I was saying earlier that I lost my connection there. One of the reasons why I was saying earlier is that I believe that you need to protect yourself in that regard. All right, let's get going on. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Duke Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Well, that was a little embarrassing. My connection to one part of the internet locked up where all my timing stuff is, and it kept telling me it was the wrong time. And I just realized by looking at my actual watch that I was late and we were actually on the air. So, hi, how are you? Welcome back to the program. Let's get to it. I mean, technical difficulties galore. Let's jump over to it right now, though. We're not going to waste any more time this morning. Normally we'd be talking with Dozer, right? State Senator Mike Shower for the Shower Hour of Power. That's actually coming up tomorrow. He's going to be with us tomorrow on the program. And instead today we're joined by another former pilot, and that is General John Hillyer, who is running for State House in District 8 down on the peninsula. He joins us this morning to talk about, exactly what has caused him to do this and get involved and everything else, and he's with us right now. Good morning, General. How are you?
Good morning, Michael. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, I appreciate you, and thank you. Thank you for your service and for again throwing your hat into the ring here. We'll get into that here in just a minute. So, first and foremost, let's talk a little bit about who you are, where you come from. Can you give us a little bit of a background on who you are and what led you up to how you got to where you are today? I guess essentially, give us some backstory here. We're looking for a hero origin story.
Aviation has been the driver primarily for my growing up in my career. I was in the Civil Air Patrol as a youngster and started flying at age 14, soloing and gliders, and then powered aircraft since then. That interest led me to that, and the fact that my father was a career serviceman. He was a aircraft maintenance special operations veteran. For about 28 years active duty, and then 20 more in the civil service. So that influence guided me into a 32-year career in the United States Air Force. I was a tactical aviator flying the F-16 and the F-22. Oddly enough, it was that flying that brought me originally up to Alaska in 1990. And despite being from a pleasant climate in Hawaii, I fell in love with Alaska, and since 1990, I always had sights on returning. I did have one assignment in Anchorage at Elmendorf. I was chosen to build the F-22 unit there, so I started that in 2005 at the headquarters, and then brought that program here in 2006 and 7. So I retired as a brigadier general. And I had my latter years in the service was with the Air Force Reserve, and that allowed a concurrent career in the airline industry. So that satisfied my flying desires. So I've had 25 years as an airline transport pilot as well.
So you came to Alaska. You're down on the peninsula. You love it. I guess the question on everybody's mind, the thing that everybody seems to, and the question that I love to ask is, what exactly did you lose your mind and decide that this was a great idea? I'm living the dream. I'm flying the big planes. I've got my retirement. I've served my country. I've done everything else. Oh, let's jump into politics. What was it? A single thing? Was it a cumulative thing? What was the thing that flipped your switch in that regard?
Well, I came down to the Kenai Peninsula starting in 2007 with visits for fishing. Always knew I wanted to retire here. So currently I'm a resident of Ridgeway and have been since 2014. And you're exactly right. I've got twin boys who are also in Civil Air Patrol. In fact, they just soloed in gliders here a few days ago with the Civil Air Patrol up at Clear Space Force Station. I sit at this end of the breakfast table in the morning and read the news. And admittedly, my scope has been and my focus has been a national strategy, national foreign policy type of look. And reading the media, I'm just not really happy with where our country is going. It's frustrating to be able to sit here and not do anything about it. So that was a large piece of my decision to get involved. Now, with a national focus, I wasn't involved at all in local politics. I used to write national strategy for the Air Force, so that doesn't really translate into details at the tactical level here in the local area. So I never got involved locally. But those two merged when I received phone calls of encouragement from folks. When Ben Carpenter stated that he was going to vacate District 8, a few party members were looking for a replacement. And I entertained those phone calls, and after some thought, decided that despite the fact that my focus has been primarily national and international, I was assured that all politics are local. And after drawing these issues out, they actually do cascade from the national level right down to the kitchen table here. So it was those two items: encouragement from local serving politicians, and the fact that the national issues do translate right here to the kitchen table, causing frustration for all of our constituents. That motivated me to put my hat in the ring.
I've said for a long time that the problem with national issues, now you obviously had a hand in some of that stuff, being able to, help create national policy and plans for defense and things like that. But the problem is for most Americans is that they have very little impact on the national level, right? And yet that's what's continually thrust down our throat and thrown in our face day after day is the national level stuff. And you see a really high level of frustration. Part of that is the internet making everything instantaneous and all that kind of stuff. Whereas before we had to focus on our local stuff because that's the information that we could get in a timely manner. And I think we've kind of gone away from paying attention to what's happening locally to being outraged about what's happening nationally and then feeling the frustration you're talking about because we couldn't affect it. So I'm glad to see that you understand that we need to focus on the local stuff and that's important for that to happen, because I think it's something we need to be preaching to everybody. We should be paying attention to what's going on locally because it's the only thing we can have a direct effect on, right?
Absolutely. And I'll use just one example. Senator Sullivan is battling in D.C. with the 63 plus executive orders that are targeted against our state. And those cascade right down. And working against that template, if you're trying to solve some of the local issues, you're pushing against that architecture that at the executive level was already decided. So you may not be able to solve your local problems successfully because of the architecture that the executive has laid, that template down. So that is why you've got to understand those national level issues and resolve those simultaneously, because they will affect the effectiveness of how you are locally.
General, you and I were talking before the show here a day or two ago, and we, it was a comment of, this is going to be an interesting experience for you because you're used to being the chief guy, right? I mean, you're used to being the general, directing people to execute a plan, to go get it done, talking to America's brightest and saying, go get it, and then trusting that they're going to do it. This is a whole different ball of wax. I mean, you're going to go down there and have to try and convince 59 other people that, your beliefs, your ideas, your concepts, your suggestions are right. How are you going to adapt your leadership style to that? Because again, when you're used to leading, it sometimes it makes it more difficult to be a follower or to be part of the crowd when you're used to leading, especially when there's a bunch of people who are kind of wandering around. I have no idea, they're just kind of going in a million different directions. How do you see that?
Well, after 32 years, that's kind of the acme of the leadership experience. But starting with years 0, and in fact 4 years at the academy before that, you are a follower. So for approximately 20 plus years, you are that worker bee, you are that iron major who's doing all the hard level work. So you learn precisely over the scope of a military career how to bookend that leadership experience. So all that is packaged up in your toolkit as a leader. And I really enjoyed the last 8 to 10 years of my career because I did sit down at one end of the table with America's brightest surrounding it. And when issues were brought up, we would discuss it. We would receive all the input. We would make a decision, and it would, because these people are so sharp, it would be executed sometimes within minutes. And despite what you may believe about the DoD, it does execute really well operationally. There's a host of other problems that it does have behind the scenes, but operationally, it is the absolute best in the world. So with that leadership toolkit, I feel like I can strongly work with others. Now, the key component here is it's not my desires and not my objectives per se. It's the District 8 constituents. It's theirs. I spend a lot of time gathering data, talking with the folks here about the issues, and it's their desires, their intent, their objectives that I'm going to carry forward. It will be predicated on my leadership experience to integrate that into the working in the House and with the Senate members as well. But I feel pretty confidently that I've interacted enough with folks over the years to be able to listen, understand both sides of the argument, and reach consensus.
It's always talked about and understood that it's sometimes that flag level officers, there's a bit of politics involved there, so you're probably not too unfamiliar with some of the give and take in those areas as well. So hopefully that has given you some good ground to cover as well. John Hillyer is our guest. He's a candidate for House District 8 down on the peninsula. That's Ben Carpenter's current seat, which Carpenter is vacating. You could find John at johnhillyer4alaska.com. That's HILLYER foralaska.com. We're going to continue with him here in just a moment. We're going to get down into the weeds a little bit, start talking about some of his platform pieces and policies. We're going to talk about state fiscal issues, the permanent fund dividend, and more. It's all coming up with John Hillyer. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return with more right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
John Hillyer is our guest. We're in the commercial break here. We got about 4.5 minutes to kind of go over some of these things and see if there's any questions from the chat room that we can answer while we're at it here. And see what else is going on. So let me scroll backwards here just a little bit. Politicals, Hawaii. You chose Alaska over Hawaii. The thing is that right after high school, I spent a year in Kodiak, working on boats, working in radio, doing commercial fishing and everything else. And then I was like, my folks went on vacation to Hawaii. It was like the last big family vacation after I had graduated high school together. And I stayed in Hawaii for a year and a half. And I did love Hawaii, don't get me wrong, but there's just something about when the difference between summer and winter is 5 degrees. You need that change of season. You need the mountains. You need, Hawaii was nice, don't get me wrong, but there's something about Alaska, John.
Absolutely. Hawaii, I travel the world in both my careers, and there is no other place on earth I feel qualified to say as the weather is as nice as Hawaii. That said, and by the way, it is a big island. I grew up in the mountains there, so if anybody ever thought it was small or got rockitis, come hike with me out in the Ko'olama or Waianae Mountains. It gets pretty big pretty quick. I never had an issue with the lack of activity there. Of course, flying was pretty prevalent as well. But the beauty of Alaska is like none other. And this is a really magical place. And it was an easy decision. In fact, my boys, after giving them a choice of where they wanted to grow up, unequivocally, it was Alaska, and they picked the Kenai Peninsula to grow up. So luckily, I had the job to be able to accommodate that request.
Yeah. Well, I'm like you. I consider the peninsula one of the nicest places on earth. And, born and raised third generation Alaskan. And up until 10 years ago, I'd never been all the way down on the peninsula because I lived up in the interior. And so I never made it down there. And once I moved down here to Wasilla, I went down to the peninsula, and I, like you, was like, wow, this is where I could see myself retiring here. And it definitely is a beautiful place. And, it's good to know that we've got good folks who are planning on representation, or running for representation down there. I want to get a bit here as we return to the radio here in just a second. To talk about your platform, and I want to get down into a little bit of the minutia of the budgets, a full fiscal plan, and the PFD. So I hope you're ready for that as we go through that, because, for the listeners of this program, that's kind of our bread and butter. We get down into the weeds sometimes, probably more than your average voter. Now, I understand you've been out and about, knocking on doors, talking to people, everything else. How's that been going? What's the response been so far?
The response has been actually very, very good. Our message is resonating. I've got a lot of support. I've got a good team who's working on my behalf. It continues to grow. We're very comfortable about where we're at. I find it takes about 25 minutes per person to synchronize with them and garner their vote. So it is time consuming, but it's simple. Our district has got a lot of like-minded conservatives, and that is our platform, and it's resonating very, very well.
And I agree with it. I think that's another reason why the peninsula is so attractive for many people like you and me, is that at least we've got more like-minded people than in many of the other major places in the state of Alaska.
And Mike, when you draw that thread, now you understand the exodus from Hawaii.
Yeah. Oh, no, I mean, that place was tough when I lived there 35, 40 years ago. Now I can imagine it's even, and I read the news, so I know how bad it could get over there. All right. The ding means that we're about to return to the radio. We're 20 seconds out. General John Hillyer is our guest. Again, you can visit him at johnhillyer4alaska.com. Go take a look over there. He's got links for everything. You can donate money. You can donate time. You can check out his platform. We're going to get in here and get to it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
There's a pinch. I don't know why he has to be so mean. It's just amazing. All right, we're continuing now. The Michael Duke Show. Our guest is retired General John Hillyer, who comes on board with us today to talk about his candidacy for House District 8 down on the peninsula. That's the mid-peninsula there. The seat currently being held by Ben Carpenter. As you know, Ben is vacating that seat to run for the Senate. And so John has stepped up here to do more service for his country, because he's already served his country for decades, and now he's decided to serve his community as a representative of District 8. But it's time to get down into the weeds a little bit here, John, and I warned you during the break that we like to get down into some of the details of it. Your platform on your website talks about things about the economy and the budget. You say you want to maximize Alaska's role in the national resurgence of energy and resource-based production. I think that's a pretty boilerplate kind of thing. I mean, Alaska is built on resources, and we can help America by helping ourselves in that regard, right? Developing our own resources.
Absolutely. And that those are the handcuffs that are constraining that right now. Before employing and working toward reinvigorating our natural resources, it is important, again, against that national template, to first, in every aspect of legislation, every bill, every approach to proposed legislation needs to be looked at as protecting our Constitution. So our liberties, our rights, and our freedoms, everything will be viewed in that template first and foremost, because without that type of approach and protecting the constituents' rights, arguably all else is really meaningless. But yes, reinvigorating natural resource production for Alaska. Now, this is going to take national leadership. It's going to take a change in leadership. Once again, the 63 executive orders that are targeting Alaska right now is constraining our development. Hopefully, with a change in national leadership, we will see a resurgence in oil and natural gas production in the United States, and Alaska has to take a leading role in that. Obviously, with our resources here, the God has blessed Alaska with all kinds of natural resources, not only natural gas and oil, but minerals as well, fisheries. and Alaska can take a leading role in that national resurgence. So we're going to have a little bit of help, but that is my second priority, to lead that resurgence in production.
As far as the budget goes, I know that you have called for the full statutory PFD, which is, again, that's kind of boilerplate. We'd love to see it, but we understand currently that there is no political will in Juneau to really address that. They would rather use the PFD as a backstop against government spending. They'd rather hold it there and choose what it is. And I'd like you to expound a little bit on the idea of, what that statutory PFD looks like, and how do we get to that? How do we get to that point? Because again, they've been tapping that piggy bank pretty hard, and it would require them to stop spending about $700 million a year to fully fund the PFD. So how do you see that happening?
Well, the priorities are actually laid out in step-by-step fashion. With the resurgence of, with the resurgence of minerals and natural gas and oil production, that will fill the coffers, allow the governor and allow the legislature to have the necessary monies to make these decisions. Why these decisions are so tough right now is because just the money just isn't there, as you mentioned. So that's what you've got to solve. You've got to get the inflow back to provide for a realistic budget. Obviously, right now, in the out years, we don't even have a realistic budget. We need to work toward a zero-based type of budget, and providing funding right up front is going to be the requirement. We're draining the SBR, the CBR. We're already in deficit spending, so we need that inflow of money just to be realistic about things in the future. Ben Carpenter has been working to codify the PFD in the Constitution, so that needs to be continued, and only with some fiscal reform, government spending caps, oil tax reform. Those type of intricate details are all important in order to provide, us for a realistic budget. That's our problem right now. We're simply not working with a realistic budget. And of course, I staple that comment with the fact that I have absolutely zero experience in the budget discussions that are ongoing. But as my constituents view, and as I view the problem right now, that's the way ahead.
I like your idea of the zero-based budgeting. We have something around here called the Charter of Changes, and the final of the four, there's four different changes that I think we need to make to change the state, and one of them is change the budgeting process, change the funding. I've advocated for basing the budget on a 5-year rolling average of what we received, but a zero-based budget would probably be even better, although harder to institute, I think. But I do agree with you. But you said something in there that makes me want to ask this question, General. You talked about, not having the money, the amount of money. Here's my question. And this is a question I've been asking for 25 years in this state. In this state, when it comes to government, do we have a revenue problem or do we have a spending problem?
Again, with zero experience in the legislature, my view is we have the available funding. We have a spending problem. There needs to be fiscal reform. There needs to be a cap on government spending. Government is not the economy. Okay, natural resources is the economy, and people do realize that, but it's just not executed. So the size of government needs to be audited. The size of government probably needs to be reduced. There needs to be measures put in place fiscally to have accountability for spending. As I understand it right now, and since Ben Carpenter is obviously here in District 8, I have the advantage of speaking with him a lot about the fiscal issues, and he's a great mentor when it comes to this, and I'll be continuing to work with him in it as he has been involved with the fiscal working group. But there is no real grasp, as I understand it, of past expenditures, current expenditures, and future expenditures. There's no measures of performance. There's no measures of merit on past spending. It seems to be the legislature is always in the crisis mode for spending. So those reforms, those guardrails need to be put in place. And it's just basic fundamental budget works. I mean, in the military, we didn't have, despite what the maybe the overwhelming consensus and view was on the military budget, we were resource constrained. Everything, all of our expenditures were accounted for, and you had to answer to everything that you put forth, and we were always fighting against limited resources. Those measures of performance and need to be instituted. So we need to get a hold of and grasp what we have spent in the past, what we are currently spending, and what we're planning for the future. Again, we have an unrealistic budget. So those obviously those safeguards are not there.
I mean, I think you touched on one thing there. I mean, you said that the resources, the government wasn't the economy, the resources were the economy. I mean, I would actually argue and go further to say it's the private economy that really is the economy of the state of Alaska. And what's happened is we've disconnected. Most states have a connection between the public and the private economy. The government is dependent on the private economy to fund itself and do things like that. We've severed those ties. And so, I mean, we've literally had legislators say to other legislators, well, the government spend is the economy. The private economy doesn't matter, essentially. Doesn't matter what goes on over there, because as long as the government spend is okay, we're protected. And I think that kind of bastardization of what's supposed to be happening is a huge part of the problem. They're not caring about what's going on in the private economy as long as the government spend continues.
Exactly. And I think a shining example of what you were alluding to as far as do we have a spending problem or a budget problem is education. I believe, as many as my constituents believe, is that the money is already there for education. If you look at, I believe in the last 10 to 20 years, there's been a 30% increase in the basic allowance for students. I think the average comes out to about $20 million per student, which is, boy, everybody's going to a private school. The money is there. It just needs to be directed into the right locations. So I think there is a lot that the fiscal working group can do. They need to capture it's just basic blocking and tackling about running a budget. Those pieces need to be worked on harder and instituted.
Yeah, no, I mean, you mentioned the Fiscal Policy Working Group. I'm assuming you've read the report. You've gone over what they produced. They're looking for a holistic approach, and there's a lot of pieces and parts in there, including enshrining the PFD, putting a spending cap in, reducing the size and scope of government, increasing slightly the taxation on the oil and resources that we have, and then creating some form of tax for revenue from the people, whether it's a sales tax or whatever kind of tax it is. Do you support all the holistic elements of that, or are you opposed to any one of those specifically?
No, I do. I do support that. I would like to see I would not like to see necessarily an increase in tax, but I think that's just the fiscal reality right now that we're at. We're already into deficit spending, and unless we increase that input, as my second priority will do, we're out of schlitz when it comes to money. So I think those are that was time well spent to develop that, and that's a very, very good report. Those conclusions are absolutely what we need. However, executing those is probably the tougher part of it all.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've been trying to execute it for almost 3 years now, and there's just no we haven't gotten a single piece of that fiscal plan across the finish line. Ben has tried his hardest, yeoman's job in Ways and Means and trying to get, but cannot get it across the finish line, any part of it, let alone all 8 or 9 pieces of it. It's definitely a frustrating thing. General John Hillyer is our guest. He's a candidate running for District 8 down on the peninsula, taking over Ben Carpenter's seat. We're going to continue with him. We're going to talk about his priorities as a legislator when we return. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. It's what we do every day right here from 6 to 8 a.m. Don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook as well if you want to be part of the whole thing behind the scenes during the commercial breaks. We'll continue with more in just a moment, and John Hillyer when we return.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. General Hillyer is our guest here on the program. Let's continue on here. Let me ask a couple questions that have come out over this. First and foremost, let me scroll backwards here. There's a bunch of comments and questions. And I know Audrey said, thank you for stepping up, John. Thank you for your many years of service. I think a lot of people feel that. I mean, you've given a lot and now you're willing to give a little more. We definitely appreciate that. Let's see some quick questions here. Greg asked, does Ben Carpenter endorse you? Have you received an endorsement from Ben, or is there?
I have not received a formal endorsement yet from Ben. We have not synchronized a kickoff event or anything together as of yet.
Okay, good. Well, that's a good question, and we'll chat with that. We'll chat about that further on as we go through here. Willie says, did you fly with Mike Shower?
Absolutely, I did.
Yeah, no, I know you and Mike are good friends, and you know, that's a good camaraderie. I think that would make a good partnership on the Senate and the House side as well. It's another plus as far as I'm concerned in your favor on that.
Yeah, I was able to build a unit, and it was both an Air Force Reserve and active duty association, and Mike Shower was in on the ground floor of the F-22 Raptor, and he was selected as the first squadron commander of one of the squadrons. We had 3 squadrons, and therefore we interacted together and flew together.
Brian says, what are your thoughts on the trawler bycatch issue? What can the state do? Is this something you're up to speed on? Can you give us your thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, the seafood industry absolutely needs our help. The Kings, here down on the Kenai are nearly gone, about ready to put on the endangered species list. We've got to work that issue. I want to support commercial fishing, but we also have to protect that resource. So I need to meet with others and come up with a good solution. This requires input, and the District 8 folks, have not brought that up as a priority as of yet. So, but I'm willing to work certainly that issue. But I understand both sides of the equation there.
You said earlier that, the natural resources and things like that, that's the economy of the state. Teresa says, I hope the throttling of one industry against another, for example, fishing against logging and vice versa. She says, I think she's saying, I hope that stops. What are your thoughts on kind of this playing off of one industry versus another?
No, it's like energy. We have to have everybody contribute, and there's smart people out there who know the solutions and can balance all those activities. Alaskans are, the most environmentally smart people around. And so we can process and produce these natural resources without hurting the environment. We can do it smartly, and just in the same vein, we can balance all those activities and certainly not play off each other. All of them can contribute.
Bill says that you need to join the Facebook group Stop Trawler Bycatch. Apparently, there's a whole Facebook group on there. So,
as a high frequency operator, I know you had a guest a while ago on ham radio. I'm pretty much the Renaissance man. I do not have a Facebook account. I've tried to minimize my footprint on media for various reasons, national security being one of them. But maybe I have to come into age technologically.
Yeah. Well, you can always create a pseudonym account. It doesn't have to be you, John. You can always just create a dummy account just to read the stuff and get the information. That's it is. Brian asks a good question, I think, here again, because we were talking about the public versus the private sector. And he says, what measures can the state take to revitalize the private sector? And I know you talk a little bit about this on your platform, but give me your thoughts, and maybe we'll return to this when we get to radio.
Oh, well, get government out of out of business. Reduce government overreach, reduce government regulation, provide incentives for the private sector. I'm not a businessman, so I don't know all the tactical level details associated with that. I do talk to entrepreneurs. Raising taxes isn't something that they want to see, of course. So we've got to peel back the government influence on the private sector and reduce and mitigate that overreach, reduce and regulate those regulations, and then provide incentives for them.
And I would agree with that. I mean, one of my pet peeves is occupational licensing, where you got to go beg the government permission to do nails or cut hair or arrange flowers. Some places they make you get an occupational license to arrange flowers. I mean, it's just insane that you have to beg the king's permission to do something that, I mean, I understand if you're a doctor, you got to go through some things, or if it's a health and safety issue, but usually it's like, what? This is not rocket surgery.
Yeah, and we just had a vie for an increase in, I believe, carpenters and other licensing, which is at this stage in our state of the economy is just absolutely ludicrous.
All right, we're going to continue here. General John Hillyer is our guest. The Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube and Facebook things. Let's get more people involved in the conversation. You ready? Let's do this. Here we go.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
What? I'm a perfect angel. I don't know what you're talking about. Nobody feels the pain when they talk to me. That's, we're talking with retired General John Hillyer, who's running for District 8 down on the peninsula. That's the seat currently being held by Ben Carpenter. Ben's moving over to the Senate. John is stepping up to try and take the seat for District 8. It's an interesting conundrum because down in District 8, you basically have two registered Republicans fighting against each other. And so people will get to choose, and it's going to be an interesting choice. And John is our first guest from this. We'll be talking to his opponent somewhere down the road, I'm sure, and probably talking to John again as well. But I want to give you, I want to wave and utilize my mystical godlike powers here, John, and basically say, I've made John Hillyer, boom, you wave my magic wand. You're now in the legislature. You're now the representative for District 8. As you move forward in those first, that first session, that first 120 days, which should be 90 days, by the way, but that first 120 days, that first year, that first 2 years, that first term, what are the things that John Hillyer is going to be laser focused on with that keen insight and that leadership mindset? What are you bringing to the table as your top priorities, your target list, so to speak?
Well, I've talked about all decisions that we're going to be looking at. All legislation, all bills, all discussion has to be viewed from defending and protecting the citizens' constitutional rights. So our entire approach to legislation will be to protect our constituents and protect citizens' rights. After that, of course, I'm going to be really stomping my foot regarding natural resource production in the state. As I mentioned, this state, there's no excuse for us not being number two in production and helping our country work its way out of the gross energy policy we currently have on the national level. With that stimulation of revenue, it provides the governor and the legislature with a realistic budget. So step by step, protect our rights, get the money flowing. Once we do have that increase in funds, now tighten down our fiscal policy. I'll be working, with the legislators to employ and execute those conclusions by the fiscal working group that we've just covered. Spending cap is a requirement. Looking at government size, the audit of the government, reducing its size, putting those guardrails of measures of merit, measures of performance on spending, so we can get a realistic view of what we have spent in the past. accountable what we're spending currently, and then providing a realistic forecast of what we'll be spending in the future. Once we have the budget and the right spending under control, then the issues such as private sector incentivization, local economy stimulation, education, healthcare, all those issues can be then tackled once the budget is under control. And then finally, after that, we're all, the people are concerned about our traditional American values. So we're in doldrums here with poor national leadership and the economy. And on my website, I list over 55 threats to our, that the executive is executing through decisions and actions that are threats to our livelihood. So I want to restore those values of patriotism, faith, family, community, and the rule of law. And we can only work on those when our budget's right, when our economy is right, and when we get the economic machine going again.
When you talk about, bringing government, and you've mentioned several times about increasing government revenues, and of course, I'm constantly reminded about Parkinson's principles, which is essentially where, all work fills up to consume all available time, or in the case of government consumes basically all available dollars, all spending increases to consume all available dollars. How important is the spending cap in your mind in preventing that? Because we've seen that where, we'll do a sales tax instead of a property tax in a community. And sure, the property tax is lowers for a few years, and then pretty soon it's both a sales tax and a property tax. Now they've consumed. I mean, that is the nature of government. The nature of the beast is to consume all available dollars. It's not a net producer, it's a net consumer, right? The government doesn't really produce anything. It's a consumer. And so how important is that to you in your mind, as far as, in the list of items coming out of the policy working group, which, how high do you rate that?
Well, it is near the top. Absolutely. It is one method to immediately demand fiscal responsibility. Everybody talks a good game about, conservative fiscal policy, but it doesn't get executed that way. People are in and out and have the money and it's easy to spend. We have to be accountable for those. We have to really hold the line. And I believe Ben Carpenter is one of a very few who's held that line. And again, I'm lucky enough to be in his district to be able to work with him and have me have him mentor me with regards to that fiscal policy. So that cap is very important. There's other tools I believe we can use, but it's just got to be the attitude that we got to be accountable for our spending. Enough is enough with regards to trying to employ a budget that isn't there.
No, I mean, and I would agree with that. And again, going back to that idea of the disconnection between the public and the private economy, that's been part of our problem, because the private economy has languished. I mean, we were in a recession prior to COVID, and we still haven't recovered from COVID, let alone the recession in the private industries. I deal in the private economy every day with businesses and their marketing needs and advertising and helping them, create these plans. And it's painful to watch these people struggle, and they have continued to struggle. Meanwhile, government has increased, spend has increased, employees have increased, and it seems like they're isolated and insulated from what's going on in the private economy, and that will lead to our downfall. Do you disagree?
Correct. Yeah. And that's why we need to shave it off. And that's what I fully support the audit of government size. And then, the money is there. What limited resources are there, we're not spending fiscally smart, and we're not spending responsibly. I've, as I mentioned, been on the Kenai since 2014, and each year you drive down the Kenai Spur and you look at commercial, private companies, small businesses, their facilities are closing one by one each year, one by one, 2, 3, 4. The for sale signs are going up. It doesn't have to be this way. With Alaska blessed with as much resources as we have, it takes just good leadership and common sense fiscal spending and an honest audit and review to get us back on track.
John Hillyer, retired general, U.S. Air Force, is our guest. Again, he's running for District 8 down on the peninsula. The seat currently held by Ben Carpenter, and he is running for election in that seat. Caucus, no binding caucus, Open Meetings Act. We got a lot of questions as far as the charter changes, but the big one to me is whether or not you approve of, agree with, or disapprove of the binding caucus rule, which has been utilized in the past. I don't think it'll be a problem in the House, although it's still being used in the Senate. What are your thoughts on that right now?
Absolutely against a binding caucus. I will not make a decision to approve a budget just for the comfort of joining into a group. That is ludicrous. The budget's got to be fully vetted. So agreeing up front to support a budget right off the bat, I completely disagree with and would never do.
And the other thing is, of course, conflict of interests, Open Meetings Act. I mean, these are things that were written by the legislature for every other elected or appointed body in the state, and yet the legislature exempts themselves from those things. Is that right and true in your mind?
No, it's not. I mean, that's why those items were written to begin with. I mean, this is the people's. It's the people who is the power here. The Open Act effort, of course, we've got to provide access into everything that we're doing, all the meetings with notifications and such, all the details that are spelled out in the Open Meeting Act. Those have to be executed. So it's clear and simple. It's the people's house. It's the people's government. They need to be able to peer in and see what's going on.
We're down to the last 2 minutes here, John, so I want to give you a chance to give us your elevator pitch, so to speak. I know you on your website, you've got your little, what did you call it, your 2-minute summary. So give us your 90-second summary on where you stand, where you believe in, and how folks can find out more about you.
Like I just mentioned, I am representing the folks of District 8. It's not about me. In fact, the other day I polled a group and asked them rhetorically. I said, "What was your opinion of this legislature? What did they get right? What did they miss?" And immediately I heard a response of, "Well, John, what do you think that they missed?" Now I answered the question. I think they missed on immigration. There was absolutely nothing done on illegal immigration. So that would be another priority that I would attack once I get in. But it's not about really what I feel. It's about what you, the people of Alaska, feel, and in my case, what the District 8 constituents feel. So I am energized. I am resonating with our district. We feel confident in our messaging. We feel confident in our priorities. My website does spell out our way ahead. It's a plan that we're going to employ. And there's one thing I can guarantee our folks is that I have the integrity. If you tell me to go forward with your priorities, those are going to be executed.
John Hillyer for Alaska.com is his website. We're out of time, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Mike Shower. All right. Sorry, John. It's a hard break. I had to get up against it. So I'll give you the floor to finish up, and any other final thoughts, maybe something we didn't hit on or a subject we didn't touch on. This is your final bite at the apple. We got 2, 3, 4 minutes here, or whatever you want to take. I'll give you the floor here.
Okay. Yeah. Just as I was saying, it's the people's power. It's their decisions. It's their items that are going forward. And I'm going to execute those with the tenacity and the aggressiveness you would expect of a fighter pilot. I think we have an integrity issue here in many of our representations. In the House and Senate, people sign up and say that they're going to do one thing, but by the time they get there, they do something completely different. And that's not me. I would not be able to come back to my constituents, look them in the eye, and say, I know you sent me and marched me off into the legislature with tasks X, Y, and Z, but I didn't, I chose not to uphold them. I cannot do that. That goes against everything, that I believe I stand for.
John Hillyer, our guest. John, thanks for coming on board. We will, of course, we're about to get hot and heavy into election season, so we're going to try and offer everybody a chance to sound off on their candidacy, but we'd be happy to have you back on again as you continue to learn more about the budgeting process, as you continue to grow in your understanding of the issues and you talk to your constituencies. We'd love to have you come back on and talk some more about it. So you're always welcome on the program. And I guess the final question that I have, just you, me, and 50, 60 of our closest friends on Facebook and the thousands that'll listen on the podcast later. But if I invited you to come on the program once a month or whatever to discuss and to talk about the issues, would you be willing to come on board and talk with us?
No, absolutely, of course. As I learn more and interact more with existing legislatures, certainly. I'd love to come back and discuss and learn more from your audience.
All right. Well, that's great. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir, for being part of the show today. We appreciate you coming on board, taking the time. Thank you for your service, and thanks for running. I mean, this is, again, I'm sure it was a big decision, and it takes a little bit of craziness sometimes to decide to throw your hat in these kind of rings, but it seems like you've got the intestinal fortitude to pull through and get it done. So I appreciate you coming on board this morning and being part of it with us.
I enjoyed the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for being part of it. Okay, folks, that leaves us for that does it for today. We are done. Tomorrow it's going to be Mike Shower, and I think Ron Gillum. Fingers crossed. Ron Gillum tomorrow morning. We'll see if we can get that to happen. And then, of course, on Friday, it's Firearms Friday. Your chance to sound off on issues of a two-way nature. That's right. It's going to be good stuff. So thanks for coming on board. We will see you tomorrow. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. That's my exhortation to you. And share the show. If we want to get more Alaskans involved, I mean, it's self-serving of me to tell you to share the show, but it also means we can get more, or tell people about it, or ask them, have you heard about it? Get them thinking about these issues. Get their mind off the national level BS that they can have zero effect on. Let's work on the stuff that we can take care of. Be ungovernable. Absolutely. Thank you so much, my friends. We'll see you tomorrow.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.